Welcome to the Influence Factory podcast. This program is dedicated to support professionals who have a desire to develop their digital business influence so they can navigate through a fast-paced, constantly growing digital world. We invite newcomers as well as our family of business influencers to a place to play, share ideas, questions, tips, and guidance with other thought leaders around the globe. Sit back and enjoy our program with your host, Dean Delisle, as he interviews guests. News and commentary are provided by Jackson Delisle and Monica Hacker. Power Move lessons are provided by the Influencer Marketing Department at Social Jack. And production, editing, and distribution is provided by the Social Jack production team.
All right, this week's influencer guest, David Fisher, president of Rockstar Consulting. He's also known as D Fish. He's a speaker, coach, author of 9 books. Think about it, 9 books, including bestseller Hyper-Connected Selling and Networking in the 21st Century. I've known him for quite some time. He's a great business advisor, understands social selling, understands social media, networking, old school and current school and digital school. And it's a pleasure to have him on. David, come on down. Welcome on the show today.
What's up, Dean?
Good to have you,
that's a lot of schools, I know. I like it.
I know, right? Well, I think we've been through a lot of schools, right?
True that.
Street school, we call it. Oh my
yeah, right?
So we were talking about haikus before the show, only because you were a slam poetry champion, and I had no idea. And then Monica started saying, oh, there's a bar in Chicago that features slam poetry. So for those of us that really aren't as familiar with it, what is that?
Slam poetry was actually born here in Chicago.
Oh.
And so for the past, I think it's over 20 years now, it's had a home at the Green Mill Lounge. It was started by a guy named Mark Smith, a poet here in Chicago, who's a great guy. And for a couple of years, that's where I hung out on Sunday nights. And I actually won once, so that was kind of fun.
That's cool. And so we'll have to have a haiku slam off.
There we go. Yeah, I put out a book of 365 haiku last year, all about Chicago. So
there you go. So Alex, you'll have to make note of that. So we'll have to get Alex a copy of that. So
there you go.
And then I didn't realize you also play drums. So we have a lot of drummers on the show, including
Nice.
myself. We had one on last week. Are you still playing?
Well, the way I say it, once a drummer, always a drummer.
Right.
Because there's always something you can play on. And my wife still yells at me for just drumming beats in the car. You just tapping things out. Unfortunately, my drum set is right now. It's in the basement. It's under some sheets, but it will at some point come back. I don't know when.
Yes, it will be. Yeah, I can see mine down there, but it's passed through my daughter using it and her friends using it. I think Alex has used it, who was on the show today. So it's a community drum kit.
There you go.
That is designed for, and there's keyboards down there. There's guitars, so it's like a whole.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a jam studio for whatever you want to do.
That's awesome.
So with that being said, and then you met your wife salsa dancing, which I think is cool. So were you in lessons, or was it just like on the dance floor at a club?
No, it was just on the dance floor at a club. I'd actually been social dancing, doing swing dancing and salsa dancing for over a decade. And I was taking lessons to really make sure I was, top form and impressing the ladies on the dance floor. But nope, just we started dancing one night, and to this day, she's still not sure why she gave me her phone number, but I'm glad she did. Her official line is, "You didn't seem as sketchy as the guys usually are." So just proof that it's all about context. And so if you want to seem, less sketchy, just hang around really sketchy people.
No doubt. Now, you and I have talked before about this, that we've pretty much been in sales our whole life, and we've been networkers our whole life, In fact,
Yep.
You've written books about it. I have my new book that I talk about starting in the restaurant business and hospitality. What was your first job? I'm always wondering about that. What was your first job?
So my first job ever was actually as a newspaper carrier. So I was the Milwaukee Journal. I was actually, don't tell anybody, I was illegal for 2 weeks. You had to be 12. I started 2 weeks before my 12th birthday. And actually did that for 6 years, was waking up at 4 a.m. every morning.
Isn't that, yeah, so I did that too. Man, I think that is entrepreneurship 101, because back then it didn't come fully assembled, right?
Oh, no.
You had to assemble the coupon pages and everything. And then, I was talking about somebody the other day. I'm like, yeah, I actually rode my bike in the snow in Milwaukee. You did too. So
oh, gosh, yeah.
Yeah, my parents didn't wake up and drive me around like I'll see now, there's like cars driving around with their kids throwing papers out. I'm like, no. We did whatever we had to get those papers out.
About once a year, my mom would drive me, and it was like those mornings where
monsoon.
No, rain. I got to deal with that. It was those mornings where it was like -20.
Yeah, right.
She was like, I actually fear for you. And I get it. She's probably like, my kid might die out there. But yeah, no, I woke up every morning and I thought it was a great experience because not only did you have to be responsible, you put everything together, delivered it. You had to go and do collections every Friday, walk around the neighborhood, collect and, kind of manage a little business. So it was great.
Yeah, I had to deliver 5 papers. So I had to not only know the house, but which paper they got.
Oh, wow.
So we had like the Chicago Daily News back then, the Wall Street Journal, the Chicago Sun-Times, the Tribune, and the Compass, which was...
Oh, wow. And you're doing the whole... Okay.
Yeah. So, and it was like a massive... Yeah. So anyway.
I wasn't that awake at 4 a.m, so I could never done that.
But I do attribute... so I have to ask this. Did you play any kind of sports then growing up?
I played, I was a soccer player all through grade school. Didn't make the team in high school because it was a really good team. And I ran cross country for 2 years. You've met me. I'm short and I'm wide, so I don't belong running cross country. But I did it for 2 years.
So you did wrestling like me then.
No, I probably should have. Instead, I went into the theater department.
Oh, there you go. So
started acting. Because I was like, you know what? There's girls there.
So we know Alex because he went through theater with both of my young adults now. So they their whole lives went through theater. But I have a whole new respect for theater, man. I thought sports had a lot of practice and stuff, but man, theater is like, woo! It was like those rehearsals and the rehearsing at home. It's like nonstop.
Oh yeah. And every day for a couple hours after school, and you get closer to curtain. I mean, I remember the last couple of weeks, it would be literally after school till like 8 o'clock.
So you go from theater to how do you become like this networking person, and then also where does sales fold into this to be able to even start these 9 books?
Yeah. Well, so I went to Northwestern down here, and I was a history major. So that's definitely not how I got into sales. But it was interesting. My dad just told me, he's like, get a good liberal arts degree, learn how to think. You can do anything when you have like, again, that baseline of good cognitive skills. So as a history major, and I worked a ton of jobs through school. I worked in the cafeteria, actually delivered the student newspaper, was a landscaper, was a waiter, did, basically every, college job stereotype. I had that.
Right.
And
did you write a book about that? You should probably.
There's probably one in there.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
Sure. But what happened was I started in sales because I think it was after my junior year of college, saw an ad, and ended up working for Cutco Cutlery, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers are familiar with. It's the best knives, and I think I still have my contract with them. So if you want to get some knives, just call me. But it was direct in-home sales. It was not door-to-door. It was only by appointment, but all referrals. And, I went out, and my first year I was number 6 in the company.
Wow.
So I sold a lot of knives. That's for sure. They're great. So
no, that's cool. My dad always talked about encyclopedias back in the day, and he's like, you had to make so many appointments, knock on so many doors, and have so many meetings to sell X number. Like he was always down about the numbers, right?
Yeah, and that really was. My dad actually sold World Book encyclopedias, so he kind of encouraged me when I was going to do this. But yeah, you really learned kind of I call it direct sales, like it's the street ball of sales. Yeah. No blood, no foul, right? You have to go out there and really engage with somebody. But looking back, very fortunate, very good sales training, very good sales process. So I really understood the psychology. And I mean, I had, as a young person, a chance to go and have conversations with think about 1,500 prospects.
Wow.
And
1,500. Connor, how does that sound? I know Connor's in heavy sales. It's on with us. So it's like 1,500. And you didn't have a CRM at the time, right?
Oh gosh, no. No. You just would have stacks of pieces of paper with different notes written on it. Right. But that's where I got my start. And I ran the Chicago office after I graduated. Trained about 1,500, I think 1,600 to 1,700 sales reps. Interviewed over 10,000 people.
Wow.
Because Chicago's a lot of college students around here. We were mostly college kids. Took that experience. Worked for the company Brinks, the security company. I was their sales manager in Chicago for a year. And then it's actually almost 14 years ago, I started Rockstar Consulting. And where the networking really came in is, so I had this sales background. I'd really learned how to run a business because even as a manager for Cutco, it was an independent contractor. I was running my own show. And when I kind of hung a shingle as a business coach and a speaker, I was like, how do you get business? I had never been in the marketing side. And I basically read a book and was like, oh, I should go meet people and network. And that was kind of the beginning. Started going to Chambers of Commerce events, started going to events like Tony P's events. And I mean, not his, he wasn't around yet, but the same concept. And just started not only meeting people, but then I really tried to understand what networking is. Because I think that a lot of people think networking is just going to a Chamber of Commerce event and that's it. And that, I tell people, that's not networking. That's meeting people, and that's great. But it really, I started to kind of, for myself in my business development, go, how do I build relationships? How do I stay in touch? LinkedIn was very new to the scene there. So I was like, hey, this is cool. We can bring some digital technology into this. Yeah, right. That's really how it happened. It was not a strategic plan. It was hey, I've got to, pay the bills. So how can I bring in business? And then just kind of went from there.
Yeah, and I always think of networking. In fact, I saw a post, it was either this morning or yesterday, and somebody goes, if you want to network, I'm going to be at this location at my office, let me know and come on by, and I was like, wow, that is the essence of networking. We're connecting as humans. We're attaching and seeing how we can help each other, and then seeing if we have people that we can put together, and like you, I sort of grew up, that was just the way it was. It was like, even in high school and working and bussing tables in the restaurant, it was like, oh, so-and-so, I need this. Okay, I'll connect you to and I just grew up around that. And I'm still perplexed today at the number of people that make it into just being an event.
Right. Well, and it's interesting, like you mentioned the restaurant. I mean, my parents were both very involved in our community, right? So they're very involved in the church. They were very involved in, kind of politics and civic organizations. So we couldn't go anywhere. Like, we went to a street festival growing up without my parents knowing everybody. It was super obnoxious because, like, we want to go and they just run into that person they meet.
Right.
But to I think to your point, like, I did see that, and I saw that it was two things that were important. One is that it was over time, right? It wasn't just a one thing. It was, hey, let's get together now, but also let's continue this relationship. And I learned something early on that sounds so cheesy, but this, I know this. Anybody who gets networking knows this. Walk into situations and just find ways to actually help other people first.
Yes.
And if you do that over and over and over again, in fact, if that is your perspective on what networking is, the good stuff comes to you. You don't have to ask. You don't have to pester. You do have to ask, say, hey, could you introduce me to so-and-so? But people are like, yeah, I would love to, because I call it networking karma. You've put so much into your network, into helping others. I know you're great at this, making those connections. Hey, I was just talking with so-and-so. Hey, you should go reach out to this other person because I think you're working on similar projects or whatever it might be. And that's so important.
Well, and I think it's about taking time to know enough about what's going on with the other person so that you can be checked in and tuned into that, which I think is a hard thing to do today, is to, and Connor says net giver, mentally, right? And being checked in with that person to the point where, like, hey, I was thinking about you, and I was in this conversation and thinking about you, because your name didn't come up, but I thought of you right away for this, and you're really in that net giving opportunity, but it's because you're present and you're checked in. How much do you attribute to that?
Oh, a lot, right? You know, Bob Berg's Go Giver, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because anybody who's really working on building their business, they're finding a job, however they're looking at networking, the people that really get it, they are checking in with people. They are present. They also go in. I mean, this is something that's been important for me throughout my career. Like I have people I'll meet with, let's say 2, 3, 4 times a year. We grab coffee, we grab a beer. We'll do that, right? We don't necessarily go in going, okay, I've got to get business from this.
Right.
I've got to do something. It's literally just connect. I mean, how do you build relationships? Just human relationships, shared time, shared interest. I mean, that's even, when we think about social media, when we think about LinkedIn, when we think about being an influencer, the biggest thing that I've found value in is just the ability to stay in front of people's, stay on their radar. And conversely, having them stay on my radar, because I got a human brain. I'm not going to remember people. But if I see Dean pop up my newsfeed, oh, yeah. And then I just had this conversation yesterday with somebody. Oh, I got to connect those two.
Right.
Yeah,
I like that. And what's interesting is you and I have both written quite a bit about LinkedIn, and and you probably fell into a little bit of this too, because then all of a sudden, I became the LinkedIn guy, and I'm like, no, I'm not the LinkedIn guy. I just happen to be leveraging LinkedIn to put people together and to get data on people. Because I don't know if you remember back when CRM first came out.
Oh yeah.
I was a big CRM implementer, globally, and just got out of the business. But one of the big things is we would continuously build all these fields, custom fields, to collect all this data on people. Like, where do they like to go on vacation? What do they love to do? What are their kids' names, and all this stuff. And then, just so we could actually have that as a recall for people. And one of the things I believe that is the blessing, and sometimes maybe the curse, is that social media now has so much information in it. It's almost like we can be caught up with the person almost before we talk to them if they're active.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. Oh no, there's people who I haven't talked to for years, and it's weird when we do like run into each other at an event. They're like, "Oh, I saw you just spoke, here," or "Hey, congrats on your new book," and you're like,
or you did this with your kids, or whatever. And then
know that.
Well, no, but then it's funny because I joke about this, but it was like you get later in life, you attend a few more funerals and some weddings and things like that. And I'd run into family members, and then all that time you would normally spend in that window of awkwardness and connecting, and not really on a regular basis, just running into family and businesses like this too. And now you're like almost know so much about each other. If you're on social media, you have an awkward silence of nothing to talk about other than making small talk if there's no intent for the relationship.
That's a great point. I mean, one of the things that I have always said, and I know you have a very similar approach, is that, for example, LinkedIn for business is a tool. It's not a replacement for anything. It's simply, it does help us stay in touch with people. It helps us get information. And so even when I go into, I run into somebody who I haven't met for a while, maybe I've seen them on LinkedIn, maybe I haven't, but to you, what you said earlier, it's still about, let me connect with this person as a person.
Yes.
And if I have some information that lets us kind of cycle up the conversation faster, great. If I don't have it, that's fine too, because you never know what people see or what they don't see. These days we never know what the algorithm is showing to people. But the trick, and because I've actually seen this very specifically when you talk about like social selling and using digital tools to improve the sales process. You'll actually see salespeople get too wrapped up. Oh, I've got to do this research. I got to find these, the 3 points and this and that and the other. Yes, data is helpful, but it's still got to be in service to something. In this case, it's got to be in service to building the relationship. So there's always that balance, right, of not getting too caught up. And I think that some people can see the bright, shiny object. Even the same thing when CRM came along. It's, oh, this is bright and cool. It's a tool. In the end, you got to have this conversation. You got to be able to talk to people.
Yeah, and I think you agree with me that there's no easy button or easy app to like speed things along. At some point, there's efficiencies that can be created and speed of data, but really there's nothing that's going to change the fact that you've got to spend time with people.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, an example I often use is if you think about your friends, from whether it's high school or college, the people college is a long way in the rearview mirror these days, but there's friends that I have from college. I mean, so I graduated in 98. So that's 20 years ago. If I call one of them and ask them for something, I don't have to try to pitch them or sell them. I could be like, hey, I know you know so-and-so, or I know your husband works with so-and-so. Hook us up.
Right.
Done. Right. We've got 20 years of shared life together. And, I'm going to butcher the quote, but one of my favorites is the best time to start is 20 years ago. The second best time to start is right now.
Yeah. Right.
And so even though it's tough with, especially networking, relationship building, there's not that direct payoff, right? And we're humans. We like to see that. Hey, if I make a phone call, I want to get business right away.
Yeah.
But you gotta be like a farmer. You gotta plant a field and then cultivate and water and weed and invest and invest and invest. And then it comes back to you.
Yeah, there you go. So speaking of LinkedIn, what are some of your favorite things, that you think LinkedIn is useful for, as part of building relationships and sales? Yeah.
So I think one of the things that I really like LinkedIn for is kind of touching on this idea of relationships. There's so many great things you can do with LinkedIn. There's so many different ways you can approach it. One of the suggestions I make is while you're in creating your network as an influencer, for example,
yep.
One of the things that's so important is to remember that you're still talking to human beings. Because I've seen other people do this in the space where they want to make your profile, for example. And there's just so many great things you can do with your profile, with the banner image, with your headshot, your headline, all that. You can tell such a great story. But so many people, or not so many, but some make the mistake of thinking, I'm going to make a website like I was a company.
Right.
And I want to make sure that there's all the right keywords and everything's is perfect. By the way, value in all of that, but you forget that I still have to have a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
Right. Just have, the amount of people who go, it's just all about SEO, for example. SEO is an important part, but you're bringing them in, then are you having a conversation? Are you starting? And so that's actually what I love about LinkedIn is the opportunity to not only share the story, share the narrative of what I'm doing, but begin conversations. There are people that are in my network that I talk to regularly I've never met. I was just sharing the story that there's a guy, he's a great author, Ryan Roten, does a lot on personal branding. He lives out in Colorado. I've never met him. We've been friends for about 5 years. We talk every couple months. I've met his wife because she was in Chicago for business. We had lunch and he's like, but D, I'm jealous. I've never met you. But I mean, he's such a cool guy, and what a great opportunity to meet people beyond just our physical geography. And just to be able to use it as a way to build and start more relationships than maybe we would have the brain space for, right? Without this help.
Yep.
That's kind of where I see a lot of the power and the value for me, for sure.
Do you use LinkedIn Navigator at all?
Oh, Sales Navigator?
Yeah, Sales Navigator. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I like that. Well, and the fact is I'm a category person, or I put things, I like to put things in piles or folders or whatever. And so I like I hated that they took the tagging function out of the base function of, I had I had everything organized perfectly. And that was back when I had 500 connections, and it was everybody's in a certain pile. And then they're like, hey, your tags are going away. And then they, but now they're in Navigator. So those of you looking for a way to organize your data, but so if you're in sales, if you're a business person, you like
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot. Navigator is great, especially as you said, for organizing data. I do use it for organizing and doing research on potential opportunities for me. And it's funny because as I don't have a big sales team. If you are on a sales team with more than one person, it's awesome, right? Because some of the features, the ability to see shared connections, and so often we're like, man, how do I reach out to this company and start a conversation?
Right.
And the person next to you in your office literally might have gone to college with the person you need to reach out to, but you don't know that, right? Because you don't sit around just sharing, contact information.
Right.
Sales Navigator lets you do that. And that's always been one of the cool things I loved about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Did you see the new feature on LinkedIn where now you can put your skills out there and promote yourself a little more? And so I'm trying to figure out LinkedIn, where you go? And I know it's all about data, but it's just funny. It's like, now where you go on LinkedIn? I even talked to a buddy at LinkedIn and he's like, I don't know.
Well, it's always funny when you take about 3 or 4 people like you or me who've been with LinkedIn from the beginning. And man, you can just go through all of the curves and the ups and downs and the great features that then went away and the bad features that just kept sticking around. And that's why I tell people it is a tool. Use it for whatever you can. But don't even, like you, I'm not a LinkedIn guy. I'm a guy, I'm a relationship, a networking and sales guy who also can be like, hey, let's use this really cool tool to help us out.
Yeah. And, Roger, who's on with us today, had sent me someone because I'm the LinkedIn guy that needed some LinkedIn help, right? And I'm like you, I'm like always willing to any way I can help out. And this poor person had 2 profiles and did a merge on a profile and then lost everything, and there was no undoing. And so I just want to do a PSA out there. It's like, if you have 2 profiles and you want to go through a merge, have somebody help you with that, or go slowly, because
back it up.
I still can't and back it up, right? So if you don't know, you can back up your profile. You can go into settings and do a backup. You can even take a PDF of the important information. Worst case.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. And lost all the recommendations. So I was just heartbroken thinking, oh my gosh, this poor person. But it's interesting with all the technology, all the things that they have, that LinkedIn has no way to help recover anything. It's like, sorry, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And I've definitely had a couple of those situations over the years. And I always just try to remind myself, it's simply a tool. For many of us, it's a tool we don't even pay for.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got to, you get what you
Wait, is that why you don't get any customer support?
Yeah.
he said, I can't get anyone to call me. I've been with them for 20 years and they don't call me. Yeah.
I was like, if you could get LinkedIn to call you back, I would be impressed. Like, I would want to learn from you.
Yeah. Right.
But it's I think it's really just a tool. And I use that word, a tool.
I like that. Yeah.
Because, you do have, whether it's other platforms and depending on your business, Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you do have, something that's been really good for me over the years, for example, is I do a regular newsletter, an e-newsletter. So I use, an email platform, which I think is underutilized. I think a lot of smaller business people or even salespeople, you could have your own personal, hey, I'm going to send out every 2 weeks, just a quick email with some curated content.
Yeah.
The idea of writing content, using Medium, for example, to share articles that you've written. There's a lot of different things you can do. You just have to make sure you're looking at all the options, right? All the opportunities, not just putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, Roger says he tells all of his LOs, it's a tool in your toolbox.
Yep. That's exactly right. Exactly.
So what's your thought on keeping up with all the social media platforms? Because there's so which ones are you on most?
Good question, and I will say, this is
in order. I guess you list them in order,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I do have a very active blog, and I write articles very regularly. So, that's that, even though not social media, that's still a platform and I'm sharing from that.
Content, right?
Sharing content. I would say number one absolutely is LinkedIn, because, my audience, the people I want to influence, are business owners, are salespeople, are professionals. So that's where I spend a good majority of my time. I use YouTube to actually create video content and share that. So that's probably number 2. I use Twitter. I've got a pretty solid network there, but it can be messy. It's very good, I think, to talk to my other friends who like Twitter, right? and there's definitely people in my network who that's their preferred place. I think if you spend too much on Twitter, you're just going to end up hating the world in your life. So it's
I look at it. For me, I look at it like it's a news source for me. Like from a hashtag perspective, I follow a lot of events and a lot of conferences.
Yep.
Want to stay in touch with people, so I actually use TweetDeck, and I don't tweet as near as often as I used to.
Yep.
But as an inbound piece for me, it's really good to go, oh, so and so's doing this, or this conference is starting to heat up, things like that.
And it's a good point. You don't have to use all of these platforms the same. So for
Right.
Twitter, it's very similar for me, where it's a listening platform.
Yes.
All of my tweeting, not all, but a good majority is in some way automated around content.
Yeah.
But the listening, I've got, I said maybe 10 or 15 people who do, and I want to stay up to date. Yeah, when the conferences hit, that's definitely a big thing. So conference season is always busy on Twitter. I have an account on Instagram, not my jam. That's about it.
Not my jam. That's almost a haiku.
Yeah, right.
Go there.
I could spend time. I don't want to.
Finish it. No pressure.
Instagram, not my no. Yeah, and then Facebook. I'm on for. I go on once a day. It's very much mostly just kind of personal, a little professional.
Yeah, same.
I don't really post except for stuff I've written. That works for me. One thing I do tell people, if you try to, there's no right or wrong about what platform, from my perspective, on what platform you should be on. It should be where the people you want to influence are, but also don't try to do all of them.
Yeah.
Right? Like pick one or two and be like, this is where I'm going to spend time. This is where I'm going to engage. And either just literally don't be on those other platforms, or, I learned a trick from, I think some of you know as well, Andy Crestodina. He's like, if you don't want to be on Twitter, for example, have a Twitter account, have one tweet. I'm not here very much. Go find me on LinkedIn, so that you're not a ghost, but you're also telling people
get to the top and leave. I'll be back in the fall.
Yeah, literally just pin it there, because then if somebody searches you, right? Because if they search you and they can't find you, then you're a ghost. There's some credibility issues. But if I found Dean and his one tweet is, yeah, I'm never here. So if you want to talk to me, if you try to DM me here, I'm not going to respond because I'm never here.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing with Instagram. Hey, I'm not here much. Go to this other place where I am.
Right. That's cool. Okay, getting back to sales for a little bit. So, we have a lot of people that are in sales, and some as long of us, some are new, listening in. So, in the world of sales, you've written a lot of sales books and networking books. So, what are maybe some of your top key tips for people in terms of they're just looking to maybe it's something we know already, we've just forgotten, but some of your key sales tips about just maybe how to kick things up a notch or do something new?
Yeah. Okay. So how many hours do we have?
Yeah, right. I'm giving you 5 minutes.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for just a little
framing it up. Yeah. I said 3. You could pick 2 if you want. Or 1.
So the first thing I would say is that the idea, and it depends a little bit on industry and right. your sales cycle, but I think the idea of having more than one channel to get to a prospect or a customer is becoming more and more important. Yeah. So the first thing I would say to a salesperson is to really examine your cadence of reaching out to people and really kind of creating a system, and I'll be idea number 2, but look in and go, hey, do I have a phone call and then an email, and then I'm going to engage in a meaningful way on LinkedIn, and then it's another call, stretch that out obviously over a little bit of time, but realizing that people are fragmented as far as where their attention is. So if all you're doing is calling, or all you're doing is emailing, or all you're doing is using LinkedIn, you're going to struggle if you don't have, again, that variety, having an omni-channel approach. The second thing I tell the salespeople all the time, no matter what kind of sales you're doing, no matter what you're trying to do in your sales career, systems and structure are so important.
Yeah.
Both in terms of what your outreach is, how you talk to prospects and clients, how you present your offerings, how you close, all the way to how you manage your time, right? I see this from salespeople all the time where they're just being reactive, right? I'm going to try to set up as many demos as I can. And then in the time around that, I'm just going to make, calls and send emails.
Right.
It's a mess. You're not efficient. You're not effective. So even just the idea of saying, hey, I'm going to do this, phone calls, and this time I'm going to set my demos for this time.
I'm just laughing because Roger typed in salespeople have the attention of a gnat on crack.
The phrase I use for myself is I have a shorter attention span than a ferret on amphetamines.
I think that's relatable.
Yeah, but that's actually the exact point. So if I know, and I came from sales, there's a reason why I'm not going to sit down and do something for 4 hours straight. But if I know that, I need to give myself a structure to work in. Yes. So like people ask me all the time how I wrote 9 books. I write a half hour a day. And these days I can kind of do that without, it's not that as hard as when I started, but I had the timer not to tell me to stop, but to tell me I couldn't stop until the timer went off.
Ah, okay.
Right. So I was making myself pay attention for that half hour. Same thing. If you're like, okay, I'm going to make outbound calls for 2 half-hour chunks, give yourself that structure, because again, salespeople, it's a broad brushstroke, but it's pretty accurate where squirrel, what's going on? And if you're just reactive, you're going to, every good salesperson I've met has a process they follow.
Yeah, it's exactly what we do with the 20 minutes a day. We're like, boom, set the timer.
Yep.
And do it in 5-minute chunks. And then this is your outcome per 5 minutes. So at least you have the intention of generating outcome.
Yeah. And the other thing I was going to say, so I guess my third tip was very specifically around using digital communication in the sales process.
Right.
It's not about just like having Twitter and LinkedIn stuff open all day, but going, okay, every day. I love that. The 20 minutes, right? I'm going to do this research. I'm going to do this search. I'm going to post this piece of content. I'm going to engage with 3 other posts from my network. And I'm going to do that. Ding. Then I'm going to go into my day. But, even if you just set a reminder to engage with 3 pieces of content from your network,
right,
from the people you want to influence, your prospects, your customers, your colleagues, your peers, that's 15 engagements in a week. That's 60 in a month. That's powerful. But just have that system in place.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Thinking about favorite tools that you use out there as part of your business, toolkit besides LinkedIn. What are some other pieces of software tools that you find useful?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's amazing what you can do. I don't know how people ran businesses before.
How many apps do we have on our phone?
Yeah. Right. I try to keep it pretty simple. I definitely use LinkedIn. I use WordPress for my blog. I'm actually, if you're a small business owner, learning the basics of WordPress can make your life so much easier. And then, around web design, because you can create things quickly, you can fail fast. So I use that for my web platforms and my writing. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn and Twitter, as we mentioned. Zoom has been awesome. I know we're on it. But one thing that I think people don't take advantage of enough is video calls, right? If I just have to, maybe a prospect, but definitely networking. I have virtual coffees a lot now.
Oh yeah.
Now we've got a young kid, so I don't have the chance to go out and just have coffee whenever I want. But I can definitely. This is more powerful. I'm engaging, a lot more of my conversational partner's senses than just hearing if we were on the phone. So investing in a decent camera, a decent light and microphone, it's $80, $100 all told. You sound better. You have much better conversations. That's really powerful. And then, I use MailChimp for my newsletters, which I mentioned. There's a number of good platforms, but that one's an easy one for me, relatively inexpensive. And so as soon as you kind of put those things together and boom, you've got a business. And that's what I'm using.
That's pretty cool. And then you mentioned our mutual friend, Andy Crestadina, who I think is quoted on this show at least once a month.
He should be.
He says, I take stuff from other people, take my stuff. That's what he always tells me. We're in the borrowing, sense of our industry, I guess. But
sure.
But in that, so who else do you like to read? Who else do you get content from out there that you like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So a lot of my actual reading, this is going to sound like a cop-out, is books. I mean, I'm a book guy. Just because, I think, and you, I mean, we're both authors, we know, like, it takes time and energy and effort, and you make sure it's like the right stuff.
Yeah.
So like I'm reading Range, which is great. David Epstein, highly recommend. Humans Are Underrated. I think all of us should read that. That's, Colvin, I always forget authors' names, which is ironic. But there's just so many great books out there. As far as, I love Andy Crescentina for online content. Jeannie Dietrich, who runs Spin Sucks, is another Chicago person, friend of mine. Her content's fantastic. This is just a very random, but I saw him on LinkedIn today, so I'm reminded of him. There's a guy named Daniel Crouch out of Texas who, if any of you want to get better at video, especially video for sales, he's very generous, and he's got great material on how to use video, both in prospecting and in just content creation. So I pay attention to his stuff a lot. And I guess those are some of the big ones. I mentioned Ryan Roten before, who's a great personal branding guy. So I steal a lot of his stuff for sure. But those are a couple that are kind of top of mind. I also will definitely be the person who, not often, but probably once or twice a week, I'm doing that scroll through the news feed.
Right.
And I'm kind of purposely looking for just random stuff. Like, I'm like, hey, help me make some connections. Let me see what's going on in other industries. And you'll always find, I wouldn't say do that for hours a day, but 15 minutes on a train, that can be really useful.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being on the show with us. I always love learning from you. And it's like, I feel like we're in the same industry, but it's almost like we don't get to see each other enough. So we're going to have to make a point to have another one of those, meet at Rivers and have another,
absolutely
sit down for no particular reason other than we're at Rivers.
There you go. Absolutely.
So we have a couple engagement winners with us today, or people that are on the show that we always like to give some prizes to and set some context behind that. But before we do that, let's get Alex and Monica back on just to see what they picked up from this episode for themselves. So, Alex, what do you think? What'd you get from this?
Hello. I wrote a haiku about it. So
did you?
Yeah. So
you did not. Okay, go ahead.
So I got networking karma. Reach out so people reach out. Insta's not Dave's jam. I really like what you said about networking karma. I related a lot to it, and I think that I think it's so true. You talked about how SEO is not. People always talk about SEO as the top. That's the most important thing to focus on. Mm-hmm. When in reality, you could have a great SEO, but you're not connecting to anybody. You're not talking to anybody. That's where people make mistakes, I think. So I agree.
Right on.
Good catch.
Love the haiku, by the way. you got a career in front of you. And I'm not joking. Let me see if I got one of them. Oh, here we go. See, there's a whole book of haiku.
There you go.
There you go.
Monica, awesome. Let's hear your haiku.
TBD.
No pressure.
TBD.
What did you get from this?
What I found really interesting was when you were talking about when you first started developing your consulting business, how important networking was. And I really, that's kind of how I met Dean and how I found my job, I really put myself out there and started building relationships and attending a lot of these networking events. And I find it extremely beneficial. And I tell all my friends, anyone I come across, that networking is key. You find leads, you build relationships, and you really just need to put yourself out there. And you can find a great opportunity. And that's how I found Social Jack.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was like, not too many people can book an appointment with me, but Monica, I think we had met actually twice, and then you were just like, I want to sit down with you, and I was like, but it was like I was really fascinated about your story. I learned stuff from you, just your time in New York working with influencers, and I just saw some good stuff back and forth, and I didn't know you were actually going to wind up here. I was actually going to help you find something, and then I'm like, opportunity presents itself. myself. So
exactly.
I love it. That's how it works. It's never a straight path, but you always end up where you're supposed to.
Yeah,
exactly.
right. And we have a couple of winners today. So this is what we do, David. I don't know if you remember this, but we give out these Starbucks gift cards, but it's the intent for everyone in our audience to share something that they learn that matters to them with somebody that they care about. And then the winners get to do that over a Starbucks coffee, but they do have to, talk about what they learned from you and from the program, just so that they can pass it on, right? So that net giver keeps going. So in terms of today's winners, we have Kim Powell, congratulations. And then we also have Connor McCann, congratulations, winner of gift card. And then our Facebook winner is our longtime friend, Rick Gosser, who's on Facebook. So thank you, everyone, for checking in. And hopefully you learned something. And again, what's interesting is some of these things, and I mentioned this, is that you've heard some of it before, but it's a reminder for us that there's important things to just connect with each other and be with each other and appreciate the human factor of being together, and I think that's important. And I think it's missed out a lot with all this technology that we have. So.
Yep.
All right, David, we'll loved having you on. Thank you for being on. And don't forget, folks, if you want to connect to David, we're going to list all of these websites and his LinkedIn, maybe not his Twitter. No, we'll put his Twitter in there. His LinkedIn account.
Instagram account.
Yeah, the Insta account. No Insta, as Alex would say. But davidjpfisher.com, right? Do we have that right? Okay, so we'll send all that out to everybody. Please make sure you read his books. It's amazing stuff, and follow his blog. So David, thank you for being a huge content creator and influencer out there of ours and now for the rest of the world. So.
All right. I love it as always, Ian. It's always a pleasure.
All right, man. We'll see you online, and take care, everybody. We'll see you on the next show.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Influence Factory podcast. We welcome feedback and suggestions. You can provide these by visiting our website at www.myinfluencefactory.com. And if you are interested in Social Jack's 90 Days to Influence program, you can simply go to 90daystobusinessinfluence.com and simply ask for the next steps. While our program airs regularly on Zoom webcasts and Facebook Live on Wednesdays at noon Central, we invite you to download episodes on your favorite channel: YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spreaker, SoundCloud, and who knows where else in the future. We will also provide occasional on-location live streams with special guests that we will announce in our community Facebook group, Business Influencer Alliance, as well as on all Social Jack channels. Our mission is to help you build your digital business influence with this podcast, as well as inspire, educate, and entertain those who are hungry to collaborate in a cool place with cool business professionals just like you.